Hello to the internet, hello to YouTube, and welcome back to this part 3 tutorial by Venturay Productions about how to make this castle corridor in Blender 2.65 cycles. Okay, that was maybe the fastest introduction I've ever done. Right, so if you've watched the other two parts of this tutorial series, which would be modeling and texturing, you'll kind of see I'm using a different scene here. That's because where I left off with the texturing, there was, a lot of work ahead, and with Psyched, the big film thing I'm doing, I just didn't have enough time to, go back and apply all those textures and do the nodes and everything. So I decided to use the scene from the actual, the original kind of render, which I decided to use as the inspiration for this tutorial series. So here's one I made earlier, just a render of the scene. So you can see here I've got the pillars, which I showed you how to make, the fire pillar, fire column things, the ceiling, the walls, the floor, all that stuff. The great thing about this scene is that we have corridors and corners and, well, doorways and stuff like that. So it's, it's more complex, it's more interesting to work with. So what I did in here is I'll just show you how I went about doing this render, because that's part 1 of, let's just see, nope. That is top secret Psyched stuff. Psyched is a movie which I've been filming since 2011. It's getting pretty near completion now. Here we go. Hogwarts corridor tutorial, part 3, intro, done. Render settings, okay. So to make that render, pretty simple. I've got render animation. I clicked this. That sets off a sort of preview render. It doesn't actually save the render anywhere, and it took me a while to figure that out when I first started doing Blender, which is why I'm telling you this kind of basic stuff now. Dimensions 1920 by 1080, resolution 100%, sort of percentage scale for render resolution, you can read that. Frame rate, frame kind of range, because I only clicked the preview, I only get one of the frames. The frame which I kind of render is just the one, I don't get the whole animation. Aspect ratio 1:1, that's all good. The output, if you were to press animation, that would actually save your render somewhere else, and that's where you need the output, just where you save it, the format of what you're going to save it as. Just a quick tip, I normally save as JPEGs and send them into folders. That way, if for whatever reason Blender gets interrupted while it's rendering, then I do have, a batch of frames, and I can always go back later and render out the rest of them, or pause the render halfway through and then kind of finish it off later. And that means all I have to do is use After Effects to kind of take all those individual JPEGs and import them as one moving image. Quite easy. The sampling is a pretty important one here. I rendered this at 200 samples, and for cycles users, most of you should probably know this if you're watching this tutorial, but it's just I don't know, a sort of resolution thing, I guess. The higher your samples, the less grainy it'll be, but it's exponential. So the higher your samples get, the less effect they'll have. Like, the difference between 1 sample and 2 samples is huge, but the difference between 500 samples and 1,000 samples is kind of minimal, I suppose. Light paths don't normally mess with these, so I'm not entirely sure what they do, but it's basically cycles sort of renders seen by guessing where light paths from emissions go. So it's more like real life. And this, I suppose, just tells you where all those bounces are going. Performance, this is a pretty important one. For cycles, if you're rendering with cycles on the CPU, I would recommend tile size 16 by 16. That seems to go pretty quick. This is 2.5, by the way. 2.6. Sorry, Blender 2.65, yeah. It used to sort of render everything as one, but now it does tiles, so that's pretty useful. If you are with GPU, then that's different, but I don't render with GPU, mostly because this is a Mac, and at the moment, GPU rendering in cycles is not compatible with Mac. That's why envy all you PC or Linux users or whatever it is that you do. But anyways, The last one is layers, render layers. I don't really use layers that much. They can be useful if you're putting lights into a different layer, so you can render those separately and, you know, create different render sort of layers for lights, so you can mess around with on the lens flares and glows and stuff. You just want to make sure that pass is combined and Z are turned on, Z, whatever. All of that pretty much does it by default, and that's pretty much all the render stuff you need to know. Now that we've got that, we can head on into, I'll just put that back to the timeline. We can head on into compositing nodes. Actually, I'll just get rid of that altogether. So, normally I would turn on screencast keys, but just because Blender it's kind of temperamental about that, sometimes it crashes, and seeing as this render with CPU took almost 2 hours to render, I'm not willing to wait that out again, so I'll just have to forego screencast keys for this tutorial. But I'll you know, speak out loud what I'm doing, but it's not really that shortcutty, so you should be fine. So here's our UV image editor where we preview the final scene. So we're just gonna sort of keep that in its own little separate tab. So this kind of triangle thing up here, just click and drag that to split the window. We'll send this to the node editor and just make this real small, so we can see there. Normally you don't have to do that, but hey, you know, I'm me. So this is the node editor. It's where we're going to be making, it's where I'm going to be making the all the right compositing settings. So at the moment, when you go in by default, you have to tick use nodes, and then you get this render layers here and the composition there, which is basically, here's what you rendered, and there's a final comp which we will save as the final image. We're going to put a bunch of crazy stuff into this line here. It's kind of like a input process something output kind of workflow. So, oh, excuse me, I've got a phone call. Where is it? I've lost my phone. Sorry about that, folks. Right, anyway, Shift A, add a, let's see, what's the first thing that we're gonna do? Depth of field, how about that? Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is depth of field, so we need a defocus node, and that would be here, defocus. Oh, I'd better put my phone on silent just in case. That was really unprepared of me, my apologies. Okay, so just stick that in there. Here we have our, oh yeah, Shift A, input viewer output node, and by dragging that there and taking this backdrop thing here, you get a backdrop, which is quite nice. And oh yes, plea of help to the internet, if anyone knows how to shrink the backdrops, because as you can see here, for me it's kind of scaled up. I can't see the whole image, which is why I keep this UV image editor open here. If anyone knows how to shrink that down, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I will be very thankful, and I'll maybe just give you a thanks in the next tutorial I do. Okay, so defocus. I've forgotten how to use this. Click use Z buffer. Okay, so you click use Z buffer. I think you drag. Okay, so because in the render settings over here we clicked Z under render layers, we can now use the Z information from this render and apply it to the defocus, and by using Z buffer we should be able to get depth of field of some sort. Just test that theory. I'm not very familiar with this node. I've only used it just the once. F-stop 4. What does that do? Okay, we have depth of field. Let's see, threshold 1. I think the threshold moves the focus point. So if we set that to, okay, so just explaining what I've just discovered here. Z information to the Z. So the defocus node knows depth in the scene. The threshold tells the scene what ought to be in focus. And for this tutorial, I'm just gonna, wait, is that right? No, that does not appear to be correct. Okay, never mind threshold. Just set that at 1 or something. Okay. Now I need to figure out blur limit. 5. Just experimenting here. That doesn't do very much. F-stop for use Z buffer. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'll just do this manually. Z scale. I'm guessing this is where you tell Blender what's in focus and what's out of focus. Let's just wait for the compositing thing up there to do its thing so we can see what we're messing around with here. Defocus normally takes some time. Just while we're doing that, well, okay, that's new. That's blurry up there. Okay. Just while we're waiting for this, I'm going to add in a sharpen node, which is actually going to slow down the compositing even more. So, where's sharpen? We can always search by pressing spacebar. Nope. Okay. Shift A for add. Filter, perhaps. Converter, vector, color. Distort, no, okay. Never mind. Wow. That is extremely blurry. Okay. Put that down, maybe to 1 again, or 2, even 2, possibly. No, 1.5. To see what that does. Okay, that's going to start doing its thing in the background, and I'm just still figuring out how to use the defocus node. I'm a bit of a newbie with that, so yeah, that's taking some time. And that's not looking very promising at all. Okay, for now I'm just going to ignore that ever happened. And I'm just going to, yeah, skip that entirely and create a map value. Is it map value? Yeah, map value. Okay. And a mix node, I think. Right, so that's created this white stuff. What we're doing now is kind of creating fog. So you want to drag the Z gray kind of line up to there. Well, I missed. There you go. That doesn't need to be so big for now. This thing. We'll just shrink that right down so we can see well. And now this, I think we drag into the factor over there. Once we take the white down, no, hold on. Size 0. 0.1. Offset. Does that do anything? Apparently, no. Leave the offset alone. Also, very experimental. I only very recently got into using these. So it's all very good that I'm here to make your mistakes for ya. Use a maximum. I'm gonna 20. See what that does. Yeah, it's 1. 0.01. That appears to do something. We have appeared to do something. 0.01. Zilch. 0. 5. Oh, okay. Scale. I'm going to turn the scale down even more, like 0.05. This is appearing to give us some results. So I'm going to turn this all the way down to 0.0005. And we have fog. There you go. Here you go. Here you can see it. We have achieved a very foggy look in our scene there. And that is actually what I was aiming for. So I guess I cracked that one. Okay, so just to summarize that node, you want the render layer image to go into a mix node, just keep it at mix. And you want the Z or the Z to go into the value of the map value node, where you use size to kind of tell it how much fog you want. And I think the offset is for telling it exactly sort of where the fog begins or ends even. So I think that's good for now. We don't want quite so much. As you can see, it's quite strong fog. It's like a bomb just went off in there, or like a big magic spell, or some sort of confundus. No, sorry, some sort of confringo charm, expulso, whatever. So if you take down the color, you know, make the color darker. The darker it is, the less obvious it is. So obviously keeping it about there is kind of, it's pretty good. It's very, we don't want something over the top, just something just strong enough to be noticeable, but not crazy. You can also use this to change the color of the fog. So blue or pink or red or yellow or green. We're just going to go with standard white. So that's the fog done. Depth of field. I'm going to have to figure that out and post that in the comments section. Sorry about that. Anyway, next up, I think is, color balance. Okay, I have a little plan next to me. I sketch it all out. Let's see, search. No, it should be here. Color balance. Okay, welcome to the color correction center for Blender. We're just linking all these up to the right places. Okay, so with the color balance, I think... Oh yes, okay, so this one is hue. Just to say, as you probably noticed, this is mostly experimental for me too. Okay, so I have played around with this before, and I am quite familiar with the workings of this, I like to think. So I'm not sure exactly. Okay, lift, gamma, and gain. I think what the rule with these two here is, hold on, I'll just zoom in a bit for you. The rule with these two is, this one is what, highlights or something, sort of tint, whatever you select this as. So if you want a really warm scene and you drag it into the oranges there, you want this circle to be the direct opposite of that to get contrast or whatever. If you want the opposite, maybe make this a cold scene. Put that over there, you kind of get a reddish thing, maybe slightly more green. That looks pretty slick, pretty cold, pretty nasty. I don't want it that cold. I just, just a little bit. This is color grading, basically, of the scene, and I quite like that, so that's all very good. So we've got fog, color. Let's see, what's next? What's the next trick in my arsenal? Okay, vignette. So vignette is a little bit tricky. We have distort, lens distortion, and this is where it all begins. Okay. I'm just going to put that up there. And I'm going to set this up real quick, so you can just kind of watch as I do this. And then I'll go back and explain it once I've got this all done. So, lens distort, and we want a greater than node. That should be in vector, no, filter, converter. Math. Greater than. Then blur node, so just average blur. Filter, blur, there it is. And going over all the top of that, we have a, let's see, mix. Oh, it did not mean to shrink that up. Stick the mix there and just string the color to the image mix. I think that is correct. This is a bit of a messy setup. Oh well. Just switch those around. And let's get that into the viewer. Okay, these are the nodes, and now I just got to figure out what to do with them. Nope. Distort 1 maybe, greater than, value 5 maybe. This is all very experimental. I'm just going to drag that out into the viewer, so we can see what's going on here. Okay. That is lens distortion, yes. Trying to create a vignette. Wow, this is tricky. I've never done this before. Projector, nope. Map value. What if we turn that down to maybe 0.1? Ah, here we go. Oh no, we lost it. 0. Aha, okay. And then 400. I think those are the right values. Let's just see here. It's looking pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so I think I nailed it. What we're doing here, we have our sort of foggy color graded image. So that is our image here. So we are feeding the information into a lens distortion here with a distort of 1, into a math node, which we've changed to greater than, and we've turned the value all the way down to 0. That feeds into and the effect of that math node is this basically this white space with black edges, sort of circular vignette. That feeds into the blur node, which we're now waiting for the compositor to sort of kick into action. Takes its time, doesn't it? Normally it is faster than this, so something is slowing this down quite a bit. What am I running here? QuickTime text edit. Oh, what's QuickTime want with me now? Ooh, no, I want to keep QuickTime. That's the screen recording. Oh, wow. Come on. Okay, I might just cut this and cut back in when I'm finished. So, I'll see you in a sec. Cut that away before. What's wrong with you? Okay, hello and welcome back. I finally got the blur node to work. It was just a case of disconnecting it from the comp and the view, deleting it, putting it back in, doing all the settings again, and then just one by one connecting everything together so it didn't have to do everything at once. Here's the effect of the vignette, which we have slight darkening around the corners. It's actually a bit much. Might just turn that down back to, I don't know, 0.8. So just to explain how that works, lens distortion plus the math node at greater than with a value of 0, I don't know exactly how this works, creates a sort of white oval in the middle of a black shape. Not a scientist here, just something I picked up from blenderguru.com. Oh yeah, lens distortion, I would advise putting that on 1. So once you feed that into a mix node multiply setting with a factor of what I've got here at 0.08, sorry, just 0.8, creates this kind of vignette. It's pretty nice, pretty subtle. Pretty much everything we're doing here is subtle, but it all adds to the overall cinematicness of it. I'm just feeding that into the comp, and the UV image editor here shows the comp and the viewer. And there's just one thing left to do, and that is quite simply, this is a personal favorite of mine, distort lens distortion. Just add that in there. Just turn up the distortion ever so slightly, 0.05. And that, you know, just gives it a bit more depth, a bit of, you know, stuff going on at the sides. It's not really a compulsory thing here. Everything I'm doing is just demonstratory, so you can, you know, take from these techniques, see if you can, whoa, that's new, what is that? No, sorry, not distort, I don't want distort, I want disperse, 0.05 on disperse. Distort kind of gives it what appears to be a bit of a fisheye look, which I guess is fine, but it's not what I'm after. Yeah, so you can use all these different nodes to, you know, achieve different settings. You can ignore some if you want, that's a bit much, maybe I'll stick in another naught there. So it's 0.005. It's quite strong, so I only want a slight bit. And this tutorial, you can do all of this crazy stuff. Congratulations, you can now do a very basic node setup. The ultimate goal of which is to create this final composition here. Pretty slick. I'm actually just going to change the color a bit. I'm not entirely satisfied with what's going on. Just make it a bit like that and a bit like that, slightly more greenish. It looks a bit too blue-red, you know? You know, if you're with Hogwarts, I reckon you can either go full out blue, like what the David Yates movies does. I don't know how he manages to pull off all that blue and make it look natural. Or you can go out, what's his name? Was it Columbus who directed the first 2 movies? And whoa, that's ugly. And go out full out sort of orange, very bright, very warm in some scenes, which is what we're rendering now. That'll actually suit these whole fire pillars more. Oh, that is a lot of red. We don't need that much. We don't want anyone near that much. It's very delicate, very temperamental kind of thing we got going here. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure if I just stuck it out, I could have figured out the blur node for the, you know, the defocus node for, I'm actually going to make this more red, some more orange and yellow. That should be fine. Looking a bit green and yellow here. It's a bit strange, that kind of look there. So, you know, I'm sure I could have figured out the what you call it, this defocus node. Should you know, be wanting to achieve... Oh, that is nice. Yeah. There you go. There you have it. Gordo. Oh yeah, these white dots that appear here, they are a result of not enough samples in applying the fog. So if you want to get rid of those, the higher your samples are, the less little white dots you'll have. The other thing which I was looking for was a sharpen node, which I can't seem to be able to find, which just brings back a little bit of detail after the defocus kind of removes some of that sharp edges. No idea where it is. It was here yesterday. Anyway, so there you have it. How to create a sort of photorealistic, well, I mean, it looks CG, but photorealistic enough Hogwarts corridor, stone castle corridor, in 3 parts: modeling, texturing, and finally rendering / compositing. No, just one more thing. These fire pillars and all that stuff, if you're doing a scene here, what I've done is taken those clips into After Effects and added in Action Essentials, from Video Copilot. So they're not just empty fire pillars, but I've got, smoke coming down. I've got fires where they're supposed to be, so it looks more naturalistic. And the floor in this one is really, really bad. I've since redone it, as you can see here. Save all the time. That is the last really important tip I can give. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. Much appreciated. If you might, subscribe or like the video, something like that. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.